Okay, so we're going to have a look at the Equality Act 2010, and there's a PowerPoint on this, so you may want to have a look through that. I'm just going to talk through it here, so you can either do that together with the PowerPoint in front of you, or just listen to this and then have a look at the PowerPoint yourself. So the Equality Act is basically a piece of legislation that came into being in 2010, and it was to replace all existing equality legislation, including the Equal Pay Act 1970. And the idea behind the Equality Act was that we didn't fragment different forms of discrimination, such as disability, gender, race equality. We were looking at everything together through the eyes of equality. So it's brought everything under one roof, if you like, so it's easier to know which piece of legislation to go to very quickly if it's regarding equality. So just moving on to my next slide. The first part of the Equality Act that's very important, and particularly important for your exam, so definitely have a look at this slide around protected characteristics, perhaps know what they are. But protected characteristics came along as part of the Equality Act 2010. They were formerly known as equality strands, but they're the grounds upon which discrimination is unlawful, and they're very clear, the protected characteristics that are included. So they are age, disability, gender reassignment, marriage and civil partnership, pregnancy and maternity, race, religion or belief, including a lack of belief, sex and sexual orientation. So as I said, it'd be useful to understand and remember those. So under the Equality Act, there is prohibited conduct. So that is essentially direct discrimination. So that could be discrimination by association, by perception, and there may be combined discrimination when it's more than one form. It can also include indirect discrimination, and can include harassment, including third party, victimisation and discrimination, say for arising from a disability. An important part of the Equality Act that you might find yourselves particularly connected to in some way is Section 149. And Section 149 of the Equality Act is called the Public Sector Equality Duty. And this places an additional requirement on any organisation that is seen as being a public body. And if you have a look at the Act, you can look at some of the criteria that would include. But it's basically if it is connected to, for example, a local authority, so we're looking at things like education, leisure facilities, anything to do with the police, anything with that public body attachment to it, any government funded organisation. And the idea was that this public sector equality duty would essentially, you could use this duty to eliminate any discrimination, but it was about going further than that. So it was about not just stepping in once the discrimination had happened, but also trying to advance equality of opportunity, trying to develop good relations, trying to look forward in new organisations, building themselves, and how they could start to promote good practice. So Section 149 is if the authority has the organisation has a public is seen as a public body, they have to do three things. One is to eliminate discrimination, harassment and victimisation. Secondly, advance equality of opportunity. And thirdly, foster good relations. So it's quite useful to know Section 149, because if you were going to support, for example, a disabled child using a public body in the community, and you felt that they fell foul of some of discriminating against that person, you could, as well as using the Equality Act, you could also use this particular public sector equality duty, and that has been used quite successfully. So I had a student who told me of an experience where they'd gone with she'd been a support worker working with a young man who was very musically talented, and he went to the I think it was the Royal Northern College of Music for an audition, and at the audition he also had autism, and at the audition the environment that they were set to audition him in was very difficult for him, and the timings all went wrong. He had to wait in a room for a longer amount of time than they'd said when they sent out the information, and it was a very rushed experience for him, and as a result he failed to perform at the level that he could because of all those environmental factors. So the student had been in one of my lectures and said, I think I could use this. So actually successfully went back and challenged the college on the public sector equality duty section, and successfully secured another audition for the person that she was supporting, and he was successful in getting into the college. So that's just one example of how that might happen. So I've got a couple of case studies that I want you to look at. So the first one is Nathan, who is a 14-year-old boy who attends the local council-run swimming pool, and he has a physical disability and he uses a walking frame to help him from the changing rooms to the pool. And the manager at the swimming pool's told him that he can't use the walking frame in the pool area, it's slippy, it's dangerous, and that he needs to, Nathan says, well, I need this to get in the pool. The manager in the end has refused his entrance. So I want you to, having had a look at the PowerPoint and listen to this discussion, how would you use section 149 to support Nathan in this? So I want you to have a think about the protected characteristics, and it's almost how kind of rehearse how you would use that information to challenge such a decision. And the second example is Jenny, who is currently undergoing gender reassignment from male to female, and it's been quite a long process. She's already had parts of the surgery for the transition, and her employers are refusing to call her Jenny in formal meetings that she's chosen to be called, and have insisted upon her using the male toilets at work. So again, having looked at that, the PowerPoint, how will you use the Equality Act to address this situation? Okay, so it's quite a short piece that I'm giving you on the Equality Act, and you can go and have a look at information on this if you're interested, but I'm trying to keep the videos and the information as bite-sized as possible, because I know that there's a lot of legislation for you to work through. So by giving you the headlines of this legislation, it's hopefully something that you can take out into practice and know where to go and get that information should you require it.